Welcome to Enabling Growth for Support Engineers, the starting point for technical talent. It is my honor to moderate this discussion around one of my favorite topics, career growth and development, specifically towards the area of support. We are going to break our discussion into three sections: hiring support people, managing support teams, and finally growing support careers. The three panelists that we've assembled need no introduction. They are Marilyn Summers, VP of Product Success at Salesforce, Marilyn Lin, VP of Global Customer Support at Delphix, and Jason McWhorter, Support Consultant and former VP of Global Support at Ford. So Marilyn is the VP of Customer Support at Delphix, as we said, based in San Francisco. Previously, she held various roles in program management, product management, renewal, and support during her 14 and a half years at Salesforce. Marilyn takes pride in prioritizing employee experience and delivering exceptional experiences to customers. She shares her knowledge and experience in transforming customer support through speaker events and as a member of Support Logic's Customer Advisory Board. Marilyn was named number 1 on the 2021 Heroes Top 100 Women Future Leaders list, supported by Yahoo Finance, in recognition of her extraordinary commitment to being a global champion of inclusion. Welcome, Marilyn. Marlene Summers is a seasoned technology executive with 25 years of experience in the enterprise software industry. She serves as the VP of Technical Support Engineering at Salesforce, leading a global team of 300 product support professionals. Throughout her career, Marlene has been involved in 2 successful exits, filed 3 patents, and has a proven track record of driving strategy and delivering measurable outcomes at scale. She is known for her technical expertise, business acumen, and leadership style described as enthusiastic, authentic, and empathetic. Marlene is a passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion and enjoys mentoring and coaching others on their career paths. You want to learn more about Marlene, go to www.marlenespeaks.com. And last but not least, Jason McWhorter is a passionate customer support leader with over 25 years of experience, driven by his love for developing people. Throughout his career, he has achieved remarkable milestones that highlight his dedication to supporting great products. Jason's belief in the power of care and support has inspired numerous individuals who have witnessed his transformative leadership. Many of his former team members now hold influential positions as a testament to his ability to inspire belief and foster growth. Jason has held the role of VP of Global Support and led support at companies like Unisys, Telagis, Abrugio, and Forth, and is currently an enterprise support consultant. And since today we're talking about career growth in support, I'd like to ask each of you to introduce yourselves by saying, how did you get into support and how you've grown your career in support once you got here? And I'll start with you, Marlene. Tell us your story about getting into support.
Sure. So I would say it was definitely a untraditional path. I started as a software engineer at IBM, and I still continue to see myself as a technologist, and I loved technology, programming, computer science. But when it came to that as a full-time job in an office, and this was actually real offices with doors, no windows, I just felt a real lack of connection, both to teammates and also to customers. I kind of tell a story, but what it's basically true with enterprise software, I was convinced no one actually used this because I didn't get to talk to customers, and it seemed like we were just building it kind of in a silo. So I kind of stuck with software engineering, got into project management, program management, and then through a series of like a combination of hard work and then luck and also a layoff in 2009, I ended up moving into a really small startup company and started doing what we then kind of became post-sales, customer support, customer success, and different things in between. And that was really the pivotal point, I think, in my career, which was almost 10 years in. I said, finally, I didn't even realize this existed. And I was like, this is what I was meant to do. So super excited to talk about lots of things that have happened for me, for people that I've worked with, as Jason has some stories as well, and Marilyn, and help all of you, navigate your career path.
Awesome. Well, thank you and welcome. Jason, I'll come to you. How did you end up in support?
Newspaper. That's how long ago it was. It was almost like 1995, I guess. And I didn't even have an internet computer at home. So I would apply for jobs over the phone and sit there all day beside the hard line, because there was not really even cell phones back then. Sure. Sit there all day and wait. So I started off as a $10 or $12 an hour tech support rep. And one of the stories that I'll tell later on that happened to me is, and this is one of my favorite stories, and I still talk to this mentor this day, I got caught doing something right. And what I mean by that is I didn't know how to type. I typed with 2 fingers, and I was teaching myself how to type with Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing. That's how far back I go. But I was playing the Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing, and the director of the facility happened to walk behind me and thought I was playing a video game. And she went and had a discussion with the manager. The manager had a discussion with my supervisor. Supervisor said, "Man, you can't be playing games in the middle of work." I'm like, "Oh, I'll stop doing Mavis Beacon." And it was really, for me, it was kind of self-preservation, because by the time when I was typing with 2 fingers, I was done with a call, the next call would come in, whereas everybody else got like a 5-minute break between each call. And so it used to irritate me. So I got competitive, and so I got caught doing something right. And the next time a position became available, I didn't even have to interview. It was like an account management position. But then after that, I went to business excellence and then service delivery management. So how did I get into this business? I got caught doing something right as opposed to doing something wrong. So that's what I always encourage my team members to do, is get caught doing something right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jason. And Marilyn, how did you end up in support?
Hi, Liz. Hi, everyone in the audience. So glad to be back here at this event. And thank you for the intro, Liz. So my path into support was also a non-traditional one, like Marlene. Probably one that when I first started out of college, did not foresee myself along my career journey heading towards support. I started out as an IT auditor with Ernst & Young. And through that start to my career, I ended up moving over to join Oracle and was in their internal audit team. And through that experience, that led me to discovering Salesforce, where I spent my previously 14 and a half years there. And during my time, and I am so blessed to have encountered leaders during my time at Salesforce who recognized my transferable skills and gave me opportunities to move into different functions and areas that I didn't previously have experience in, but they recognized the skill set that I was bringing to the table and my fresh perspective in looking at the business. And so I joined Salesforce starting out in the technical program management team under tech and products. Moved on and became a product manager because I was really fascinated about the work that they were doing. And then through there, I actually hit my 8-year mark with Salesforce at the time and wanted to branch out of the tech and product organization. And so I looked, and at the time, the renewals organization was going through a transformation. And I got an opportunity to join them in the strategy and operations team. So I got to work closely with our renewals team and really got to understand that side of the business. And from there, I then moved on to join our customer support team at Salesforce as a chief of staff for the leadership team. And then when I was on that particular point in my career, I was reflecting how I had been a generalist and really grateful for the opportunities to have been able to move around different disciplines. But with my multidisciplinary background, I wanted to bring all of that into honing in and specializing in support. And why did I decide on support? Because I felt that the connection with the customer, having been a product manager previously, and what I know now, having spent time in support, I wish that when I was in product, I paid more attention to my colleagues in the support organization, because there's just such a treasure trove of insights related to the customer's experience and usage of products and services that you can bring back to cross-functional teams. And I wanted to be an advocate, be a strong voice for support, and really get support to have a seat at the table upstream in the process in the business, and not seen and thought of as an afterthought. And so that's how I ended up then deciding to stay and continue to pursue my career journey within support, and had the opportunity to move over to the MuleSoft support team, first helping build out the strategy and operations group for them. And then towards the end of my time at MuleSoft Salesforce, I was leading the support delivery team and customer escalation team as well.
And I love that. And it goes back to Ben Gardner yesterday, who was talking about the communication between support and success and product, and how the insights that you can get from your support teams and support tickets can lead into product roadmap direction and growth. And so having lived in those organizations, you were really able to see that and influence it. Very cool. Well, thank you all for sharing your stories. It's funny how folks end up in support. Not many people go to school to become a support engineer or support person. And so we all get there from different angles and then find ourselves there and growing. And it's those perspectives throughout the team that really make our teams something that together works really well. So I guess for each of you, when you're building your team, so we're going to talk a bit about hiring and hiring support teams, because you've all built support teams. Why do you recommend to people to start their career in support or move into support? Why is it a good place to land as in your professional career journey?
I could take
Marilyn.
that one.
Go ahead, Marlene.
Sure. Well, I think as you were saying too, a lot of people don't go to school for support per se, but even back in the early times that Jason was alluding to in the 90s, you had a lot of people get into it by having an interest either in electronics or computers. And it kind of seeded this generation that ultimately followed with the academic types of proportions that came with universities around the world, as well as certifications and all the other types of things that different private and public organizations offer. And so I think it's a good place where you can go to school and study computer science. You can study information systems. Like now there's like a laundry list of cool things that you can study in school. But you also can, in different markets, come into it from a completely different background. And you can do trainings that are available. Obviously some things have costs, but some things can get reimbursed by companies as well. And then there are a lot of like free and other types of programs out there. So it really, in my mind, technology is an avenue that everybody around the world can get access to. Wherever you start at, different people in different countries have different level of access to things. And so it's not a perfect system per se, but it's definitely one industry that, even by what it is, gives people access. And I think that that's something too that we always continue to encourage and evangelize around the world, as a global company. How are we reaching people and giving them access to the tools, and then bringing them in to these jobs, which can be one function which is more entry level. If you've never done it, you can come into a support function, just like in sales, you can come into being an inside sales rep, IT. There are other functions where there isn't that much of a feeding ground, and that's okay, because then you can move off to that, which we'll talk about. But it's a great way to come in and get your hands dirty and figure out products and figure out people, which are literally the two things you need, and then go on from there.
Yeah,
I think that a support role provides so much value for someone starting out, because in the role, you're interacting with end users, right? These are not the buyers, not the decision makers who decide to sign up with your company, but these are the end users. And through the interactions, you really get to understand how the customers are using the product and services. And then you become the advocate for the voice of the customer. You can then feedback, those insights to cross-functional teams and have more of those interactions, not just within support, but really branching out and making those connections and collaboration touch points with cross-functional teams, including product, engineering, training and enablement, services, customer success, the partnership teams, channels, and alliances, of course, sales as well. And because of the interactions that you get in support with the end users and the customers, you develop deep customer empathy. And then for folks who start out in support or have spent time in support, for them to be able to branch out into other parts of the organization, they become that voice and also provide that lens of how customers are using the products and services. And then you get that embedded into other parts of the organization that will feed into better business decision making, leading with the customer empathy side of things. Also, creative ideas because of the experiences and things that you see during your time in support, and just bringing fresh perspective, and also being an advocate for support in those cross-functional teams as well.
Absolutely. Because as leaders, and you point to, look at, you came into the organization, you learned and you grew, and look at, this person went here and this person went there. So where do you see support engineers matriculating in their career journeys? What are some success stories that you've seen, and where have you seen paths for people who start as support engineers at the beginning of their career?
I'll start with this one. This is the story I was going to tell you earlier. Shoot, hang on. There it is. All right. So I had it. This happened to be perfect timing. I didn't set this up. I didn't ask him to do this. There's a gentleman that I hired a couple of times. One time I hired him for $10 an hour. The next time I hired him for like $14 an hour. But he wrote this. He said, "I don't post much about my personal work life on social media. In 2000, well, he said, but I want to let y'all know your boy's been killing in the tech game. In 2017, I joined a small startup in the customer service department. Fast forward to the beginning of this year, and I was named 2022 SMB Sales Engineer of the Year, recognized as a 2022 top performer, and a recipient of the coveted President's Club Award, so he got a free trip to Cabo. He was also promoted to a mid-market sales engineer, and recently he was promoted to be the manager of the SMB sales engineering team. The reason I'm posting this is because it's never too late to break into support or tech. I'm a high school dropout with no college education, but I invested in myself. I want to thank Jason McWhorter for taking a chance on a wild card like me." He actually wrote that on social media just the other day, or just yesterday, and I didn't even think about. We weren't talking about it, but you can go any path, right? And so everything that Marilyn and Marlene just said a minute ago, it's all spot on. However, you have to be performing in your job. You can't just expect these things to happen because you're, I don't want to use average. On a scale of 1 to 5, you're a 3. All right, that means you're actually performing. But if you really want to go anywhere, perform at the highest levels, right? And then as leaders, I do this all the time. If you're meeting your objectives or exceeding your objectives, and you want to get into product, or you want to get into be a CSM, or you want to be a trainer, or you want to be a salesperson, or your name is already out there because you're doing such a great job. So now tell me what it is which path do you want to go? And what I will do is I will make sure that you get a project. Now you have to keep doing your 40 hours a week, but I'll give you a 5 or 6 hour project with a CSM or a project manager or whatever. The reason why I want to do that for you is because, first of all, you're performing at a high level. Secondly, this is your passion, where you want to go. And third, nobody knows, I guess 4 things. Third, nobody knows the customer better than support does. Nobody. I mean, we've already established that. We know the customer better than anybody. Oh gosh, I forgot the 4th one. Doesn't matter what the 4th one was. There was a 4th one, but I guess the point is that you can go anywhere that you want to go in a company when you start off in support, because you to Marilyn and Marlene's point, you have such a cross-functional relationship, right? And when your name is out there as somebody who's doing a killer job, oh, that was it. That was the fourth one. So now you're doing this project. We've already established you're a high performer. Why would anybody go hire externally when you already have somebody who knows the products and the customer, right? And the product. So those are the four things that I tell people when I'm either in the interview process or they're already in the building. What is it you want to be?
Yes, we have to have that conversation. But as you said, you have to kill it in your role. You can't say, I want that if you're not doing well at this, because this is your role today.
That's right.
But as an employee, you have to say what you want. And then as a manager, we need to enable and help them to get those paths and promote them within the organization. I love that.
Right.
Thank you, Jason. So that feeds into, you've all recruited support people once or twice. What do you look for when you're recruiting these people? Especially some are right out of school, or you're giving them a chance, you're giving them an opportunity, you see something. What are the things that you're looking for when you're hiring support engineers? Marilyn.
I could go, but I just went. So
Sure.
I'll start. Hunger. First of all, right? I'm looking for somebody who understands, like, and we explain this job is not for the faint of heart, right? Nobody ever calls support just to say hi, have a great day. It's always problems, right? So I look for that. And then the other things that I look for are what I dig and I dig and I dig, right? Because there are professional interviewers out there, right? And I dig and I dig and I dig until I find the thing that I go, oh, that's it. Everybody's got something. Everybody's got something. And then what you think to yourself is, okay, that's the something. Can I live with that? Right? And if I can live with that, or if I can coach, or if I feel like I can coach you out of whatever that thing was, and you have that deep, dark passion for like being a fixer. And then the last thing that I look for, and this is a weird kind of thing, but I will ask somebody something that gives them, makes me believe that they have a linear thought process approach. So as an example, explain to me how you would change a bicycle tire, right? So how you have to do it is you have to take or pick a thing, right? If you've never changed a bicycle tire, but maybe how you would envision changing a bicycle tire. You got to take the nuts off, right? And so on one side you start, and then on the other side you start. Then you pull it off. Then you put the new tire in, and then maybe you just fix the tube first, right? So, but it has to be very linear in process, because in support you can't just get to the end. You have to figure out, where did it start? How did it start? What are the symptoms to identify the problem so you can fix the problem?
Yes. And then explain how you're fixing it.
And be able to articulate. I should have said that, but be able to articulate to me without showing me on a diagram or going and get your bicycle and showing me, because most of the time you're either on a phone or you're on a chat, or you're not necessarily always on a Zoom, right? So you can't like show in a lot of cases. I mean, we're getting to a place in these days in times where we can show better, but explain to me how you got there and articulate it to me. That's right. That's right.
So Marilyn, Marlene, what do you look?
Yeah, I was gonna say too, just on that, I think as leaders, we do more kind of management interviewing, because that's what we're used to doing. And I hadn't interviewed somebody for a support engineer, like an individual contributor position, in a long time, like years. And I recently had to, and I was nervous because I was like, okay, I don't even have the technical skills now that we're asking people to do. So, and I'm not going to be the technical round, but I was like, wow, I really need to actually think and prepare for this interview more than the management interviews where I have, 50 questions that I know I drill on management, right? And so one of the things that I like as an interviewing approach, and I think we talked about this a little yesterday, in a world now where we have generative AI, which we love, and people can, do stuff with resumes and there's a lot of things that you can get really cool bullets and talk tracks to say in an interview that sounds really cool, and that's great. But I really want to know people's stories, like Jason said, and backgrounds and how they think through ideas. And so what I would encourage folks, if you're going into an interview, whether it's an external opportunity or internal one, like think of those stories, think of that most challenging customer issue, think of the best success you had, and have something prepared so that if you get asked that question, you have like the best answer for that based on the stories. Because also, like Jason mentioned, we're in a competitive marketplace. We're not looking for average. We're looking for above average. And that is shown, like if you bring us stories or ideas. And I love too when support engineers will give ideas of how they think their product could be better, right? They're giving that feedback in the interview, and that shows that they've got that deep level of the product. They understand it. They understand the customer pain, and they could come into this role and do the same for your products and your line of business.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. So similar to Marlene, it's quite rare for me to interview individual contributors, but it's for me to hone in on the thirst for knowledge. The individual really looking into exploring more than maybe the scope of the area that they're assigned to, but wanting to take the extra effort and time to go and explore and add on to their tool belt as it relates to a technical skill, for example, or deeper dive into a particular product within the company's offering. And then also with the mindset that they're not here just to relieve the case queue, but they're here to contribute to more than just that. And how do they help assist in identifying new ideas, coming to work through initiatives and driving changes through processes as well. Those are areas that I look for.
Awesome. Well, after we hire them, a critical piece of setting up a support engineer or any employee for success is onboarding. And I'd love to hear some of your secret sauces for onboarding new support engineers, and how do we help them ramp up quickly and contribute to customer satisfaction from the beginning, and make sure that our support engineers are having a satisfactory support experience as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on onboarding.
I'll jump in on this one since I went last on the last one. So for me, I look at it as making sure out of the gate that you identify and give the individual opportunities to shine and to contribute as quickly as possible. Even if they're not fully onboarded and enabled to start handling cases, but find other ways for them to get involved. Maybe they can contribute to process improvements. Maybe they're taking on special projects. Maybe they're lending a voice for some internal user feedback, right? Those are ways to get them plugged in quickly. And then also encouraging the individual to provide feedback, whether it's on their onboarding process to be able to address quickly, or for enhancements to the future new hires joining and improving on that experience for future colleagues. I'm sure this is probably a process that's well established across companies, is assigning an onboarding buddy to the individual that they can go to, especially in the working models that we have right now. When we're all remote. Most of us are still working remotely or in a hybrid way. I think additional support needs to be provided, especially if you have new hires who are joining who are more junior in their career, right? Feeling like they can go to somebody to ask questions, because it's hard now. You can't just swivel chair and tap someone on the shoulder, but knowing that there's a few individuals that they can go to reach out for guidance and help. And then as leaders, as you know, my own experience as head of support, I make an effort to make sure that I meet every new hire who joins the team. So every individual who joins the team within the first month of them joining, and really establishing those relationships with them, and giving them the understanding and know that they can reach out and share feedback, concerns, suggestions directly to you as a leader.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so important to have a phone a friend. You don't want to ask your boss everything because then that makes you feel like dumb or whatever. And if you have a phone a friend for those questions that just aren't intuitive and then can build it into the knowledge base for the next support engineer, that's so empowering. That's great. Marlene, Jason, some onboarding tips and tricks.
Yeah, I think as Marilyn mentioned too, in a startup company or when you have like a team of 4, like the peer onboarding, it was the way to go. But you quickly learn as you have the distributed teams, and then just as sizes of teams grow, it becomes very inconsistent. And then it might just be the luck of the draw if you get this peer mentor, then the other one, and then the peer mentor ends up being a full-time job, right? And so in that way, building out more of the structured, credentialed, do this week, and build in some flexibility too, because some people love to watch videos for 8 hours and some people think that's crazy, right? So figure it out. But I would also encourage you, like as a new joiner, a support engineer on the management side, especially as we look at building high performance teams and performance management, don't fall behind in your onboarding. Like there can be legitimate reasons, and obviously there's like a million things you have to get access to and stuff, but I do think it's really important in those first, just like managers have 30, 60, 90-day plans, like you need to show that like you're here, you're in it to win it, and you're going to complete your onboarding. And sometimes when people falter really early, again, there can be a legitimate reason, but sometimes it's not the right fit, or they're like, oh, I didn't realize this was a support position. You're like, okay, literally it's all right. So, but we will use that early months to kind of see where that lands. And so it's important to put your best effort forward. It's also like the best time to 100% focus on learning, and you're not going to have to like learn and do the job, which is going to be the rest of the time. So really like lean into that and get excited about that, and then give feedback like Marilyn said too, because we need to keep making it better. Products keep changing, emphasis keeps changing, so we want to keep iterating on it.
Yes, I talk a lot about new hire energy. Like you cannot start a job depleted. You've got to have new hire energy to be ready to learn and absorb. And you need to take care of yourself and do what you need to do to be able to start and feel underwater and get yourself up to the surface. And if you don't have that new hire energy, then you're going to start at a detriment because you won't have that ability to really just dive in and learn no matter how good or not good your onboarding is. Both of you brought up remote or hybrid and the world of work that we're in today. Love to talk about some tools, some resources, and how to support people in excelling in a virtual or hybrid work environment where you can't lean over the cube and be like, hey, what is this again? Or listen. And we also don't have that ability to listen in on other people's calls to kind of absorb from the environment around us. We're by ourselves. So what are you all doing to set people up for success in a remote or hybrid universe?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. I think COVID really caught everybody by surprise. Not many people knew how to work from home. Not many people thought it was going to last more than a couple of weeks. And so you had to like adjust, right? And now we've had 3 years of experience of learning how to, or for whatever it is, 3 or 4 years of experience now of how to learn how to onboard people. I'll be honest with you, when it first started, we didn't know how to do it. It was rough. What we did when we finally started figuring it out though, is when you do have to listen on another call, you just have a Zoom up and you're like listening in to, you just put yourself on speaker and you listen in on the call, and then and you're sharing your screen with the other person, and so that they can see the points and the clicks and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. The other challenge, and I don't know if Marilyn and Marlene have this, but the last few companies that I've worked in, the processes themselves just weren't very mature. The information was not necessarily in a centralized knowledge base. It was in a Confluence article in some places, and it was in Zendesk in another place. And half the time, the two they didn't match. And then sometimes even when you did product release notes, they wouldn't update the Confluence articles or the Zendesk things. And so it was all a big kind of cluster, right? And so going back to one of the very first things that we first started talking about is how do we get all that information back into product? Well, we took all these things that we were finding in the remote environment, took it back to the product people, took it back to the Confluence article writers, et cetera. And then, so we made it more manageable. But perfect? No. I mean, it was probably worse than that before we went remote. And what it did do is force us to update all of our information. So I kind of, in a weird kind of way, this virtual world of, updating and training, not even onboarding, just, providing updates to the product releases that are about to happen. Those are so vital so that we make sure that we're, customer calls in and says, hey, your product is messing up in this area. We go, you don't do that. And we go, well, I said, we don't do that. Well, your product release notes say you do. Oh, okay. That's embarrassing. So, virtualized learning is more than it has ever been in today's world. And would I say we're great at it? No. Would I say we're better at it than we were? Absolutely. But then you bring in a company like Support Logic who can take all that stuff and smash it all together and make it in a singular location. That's really kind of like one of the values that I see of Support Logic and why I get real excited about, working with you guys.
Well, thank you. And so you see a tool like that able to make you even more effective in a remote environment?
100%. Yeah, that's why I bought it before I left. So
thank you. Marilyn, Marlene, anything to add to that?
I think given, yes, the pandemic with new hires joining, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, especially for more early stage professionals starting their career journey, the remote first, the hybrid models present less opportunities for people to really interact and meet colleagues within support their own organization, but also outside their own discipline, right? So it takes that additional extra effort. I think for leaders in the room joining us virtually here, great leaders and managers are connectors, right? You do need to go and make that, help bridge those relationships and help drive those introductions and connections, and giving more exposure to your team members outside of support, encourage virtual coffee dates, provide opportunities for individuals to participate in cross-functional projects. Those are great ways to get folks to get to connect and work with and meet other people. For my team, one of the things, and because I'm a very social person, and so I do miss just being in the same office and location as everyone. But one way, especially since those of you who run global teams, to really encourage the cross-regional interactions as well. So one of the things we did was we created a Slack channel. We have our support team on it, but it's a social channel, right? This is a great way for us to go in and post fun things about our personal lives, whether it's photos from a recent trip or vacation, something that you did over the weekend, sharing a hobby. And then each month I also post a question for the group and team, just like icebreaker type questions to encourage team members to share a little bit more about themselves. And it's just a fun way to get to know everyone and discuss things outside of cases and work processes. And then as a company, when I first joined, I learned that there was a Slack bot. It's called the water cooler bot, that you can join the related Slack channel. And then every 2 weeks, it just randomly pairs you up with an individual who is also part of that Slack channel, who have signed up. And it'll connect you, it'll prompt you with an icebreaker prompt. And it's meant to really encourage people to then establish a virtual coffee date and really get to know, your colleagues and other groups and departments as well. So those of you who are using Slack, maybe that's a tool that you can also look into as well.
Well, and it's all about connection because nobody meets up at the coffee maker, right? So instead, our jobs as leaders is to force that connection, not in an uncomfortable, awkward way, but in a starting a conversation or a Slack contest, or there's a lot of creative ways that you can get people in a room. Here at Support Logic, we play a lot of goofy games. We do Pictionary or Family Feud, and we get people who choose to come in together. We put them on cross-functional teams and do all those things. Why? So they connect, because they don't naturally connect by walking in to get coffee at the same time. So this leads us right into one of my absolute favorite topics around engagement and job satisfaction leading to retention. And we all know that support tends to have a lot of turnover. Now, some of that turnover is for good because then they matriculate into the organization, which is exactly what we want. We want to take our good people and build career paths for them. But let's talk a bit about retaining top support engineering talent and what we can do to create that positive, fulfilling work environment and create career paths to keep support engineers motivated, engaged, especially if they want to stay in support, and also if they want to move out. We already talked a little bit about moving out and up, but like staying in support and building career to make sure that we're retaining our great people.
I can start with that
Marlene,
one.
why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely lots of things like involved, and even I feel like in my 4 years at Salesforce, because of the market and COVID and all these different kind of factors, you see how much external trends can impact your company. And so it's easy to think, well, like, wow, there's like really nothing we can do here. And there is some things that we can't always control, which is why the onboarding and hiring is really important to keep the machine going. But I think it's also important too, and just tying also to return to work and stuff. We've all have been around for a while. Like COVID, that was new, but the whole thing about offices and office space is always been in our industry. So it's just showing up a little differently now, but there's still like, when we moved from physical offices with doors to open space to cubes, you had a lot of people that were like, some were support or engineers, introvert people, they're like, it's too, right? And then we don't even have the cube. It's just, there's nothing. And now there's kind of more cubes come back, right? So it's not super new, but the great thing about the ecosystem and different companies, and companies will debate too. And there's a lot of postings where people can go at it about what's the best way. But I think it's also great for employees. Like, you can pick. It's a free market. Like, if you want to work for a company that says, all we do is remote, you can do that. If you want to do something, all in office, you can do that. If you want to do the middle, like, it's really great to have that healthy debate. I don't think it's going to go away, but I don't also think there's one right way. We all know that you could be extremely unproductive in an office and walk around all day, and you can be extremely productive at home, and vice versa. So I think it's great to bring both of those things kind of together. And again, from a retention, I know that matters because the whole return to work, a lot of people said, oh, blah, 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 right? But it's good. It's all about choice. And, as leaders, making ourselves available, as Marilyn said, and answering tough questions and stuff. And people, you're not going to tell people always yes or give them what they want to hear. But if they hear something, that does build a level of trust. And there can be disagreement. And there can be things too, like we will tell people things and they'll be like, oh, no, that's ridiculous. But then in 10 years, they're like, oh, I get what they were saying. Because some of these things take time, as you go through your career, you don't know the whole context. And then you get more experience, you get more cross-functional experience, and then you like, oh, okay. And so I think it's all a continuum, and we can kind of continue with people on that journey and stay connected. Because, we all love these stories of people that we stay connected with, and we see where their careers go and their paths grow.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do. I'm going to kind of pile on to what Marlene said. I do something called an Ask Me Anything every month. And I have the entire staff on, and they literally ask me anything. The first one, they didn't. The first one, but by the time, but after the second or third one, people started getting more comfortable with me. They would ask me things like, what's my favorite topping on a cheeseburger, or, things like that. The reason that's important is because I had 5 strategic objectives and I put my money where my mouth was as it relates to team development. So I actually put in as one of my strategic objectives, team development. And then what I did was I actually took, and somebody mentioned it, I think Marlene, it might've been you. But what I did is I actually created like mock career paths. So if you want to stay in support, here's what it takes to be a level 1. And here's what it takes, right? If you want to be a level 2, here's the technical acumen that you have to have acquired, and the customer communication skills, and possibly the leadership skills, right? If you want to be a tier 3, all the way up to a senior tech, all the way up to a solutions engineer. I also created a secondary path. If you want to go into some other path, it could be a leadership path, like a management path, right? Here's all the skills that you have to have and are required of you. And again, I went through that probably once every 2 months. I wanted to remind people, oh yeah, by the way, so-and-so just got promoted. Oh, so-and-so just got promoted off to this group. And I would share those things. But the main thing is, I said, even if you have these skills, and I want to remind you, you have to be blowing the doors off too. You can't just say that you have those skills, say that you have those skills. It has to be, you have to have these skills, and they have to be demonstrable. You have to demonstrate it. So that's how I kept people. And by the way, I had 2% voluntary attrition in a year.
It's pretty awesome. But also it's that and this is where I see you going down the ladder. So you want to move up on the ladder. I see you here. These are the things that are missing. When I see those things, you get to move up on the ladder, so that
if you're doing a good job.
Really clear feedback of I need to check these 3 more boxes.
That's right.
And demonstrate that I am able to, and then I can get to where
I showed that skills matrix every 2 months and reminded people, if you want it, and if you want the project that I alluded to earlier, you tell me which project you want, and we'll get you there.
Yeah, clarity.
Marilyn,
you're chomping at the bit.
I wanted to add to this conversation here, and I'm going to start with action speaks louder than words. So as leaders, encouraging feedback. We've got the employee surveys, but if you don't actually do anything with that feedback, then don't ask for it, right? And when I first joined Delphix, I was hearing a lot of that feedback from my team, where we've shared this feedback before, it hasn't gone anywhere. And so after my first 2 quarters, what I asked our HR team to do was pull down all the written feedback from the past 2 quarters surveys, and we dumped it into a spreadsheet. I identified and grouped them into themes. And then I sat down with my management team, and we went through the groupings and identified who across the company we needed to go and have conversations with. And there were comments related to recruiting that we needed to provide feedback with some of the HR processes, with product and engineering. And through that, we actually drove a lot of initiatives, and we brought individuals and leaders from these various different teams to come in and share, this is what we heard from support. Here are the things that we are addressing. Here are some of the things that we'll be working on, and give that back to the team, that this didn't just go into a black hole, right? We actually value input that you have provided, and we're taking steps to go and improve on it. And we may not be able to do all of it, right? But at least be able to share that feedback and do that closed loop feedback around the suggestions and ideas that have been shared. And similar to Jason, that ask me anything, it's making sure that you do provide those skip level meetings and to support leadership. And then again, encouraging team members to speak up and share, because good ideas come from the group, not from the top only.
That's right.
So making sure that they feel that there is that platform for them to share and provide ideas. And for me, when I first joined Delphix, I made sure during my own onboarding, I had one-on-ones with every individual all the way, all the ICs on the team and build that relationship with them. And they were surprised. I was hearing feedback. They said, really surprised that our VP is spending time to talk to us. And I said, why wouldn't I? You are my eyes and ears. You are so close to everything, right? And if I don't hear from you, I don't know whether something is working or not. I need to hear from you.
That's right.
And then too, I also on a periodic basis will send individuals on the team a quick Slack message just to check in and say, hey, hi, how are you? Just how are things going? And just continue to encourage that connection with the teams, because for individual contributors, they may shy away from reaching out because they feel, oh, you're a leader and we don't want to, take up your time, or we don't want to reach out to you directly. But it's really important to hear from up and down the chain and, across as well. But just again, as leaders, we need to provide that space. And again, especially remote, you have to take those extra effort.
Yes, you're too busy. I don't want to bother you. You're not bothering me. I can make change or make things happen or make decisions based on the feedback that you give me. But if I don't know, then I am blind. So it's at opening those doors and then empowering your people, which then makes them feel connected to the organization and they feel invested in. You're investing in them. They're investing in you. And there's retention.
That's right.
That's right.
So
if you listen.
Thank you, Jason, for saying that. That is the word, right? Word of the day around all of this management, whether it's hiring, whether it's onboarding, whether it's growth, whatever it is, whether it's product, whether it's support. If we don't use our listening skills, it's all for naught.
That's right.
And so that applies to us as managers, but also as support people. We need to listen to our customers. But as leaders, our customers are also our people. So looking ahead, what trends or advancements do you see shaping the future of support in your organizations? And how can organizations proactively prepare their support engineers for the evolving needs of the customers in the industry? How do we stay on top of all of the changes that are happening in our world today?
I'll take this. I touched a little bit on it in my session yesterday on technical complexities. So, and we already knew before ChatGPT that, with all the investment that companies, small and large, make on deflection and knowledge and stuff, a lot of easy things go away. And what you're left with on reactive support is more difficult things. And so that troubleshooting ability, that way to navigate through technology and different, everything too is, a lot of things are up in clouds, things, or if they're not in a cloud, that's not even easier because then you got to, get into another system, right? So people that are going to realize that there isn't an answer for everything. We need the next generation of support engineers to not just be reading off the answers that somebody else created. You're going to have to be creating those. And there's still no AI that can create all the answers. Yeah. Some of the basic stuff and some other stuff is really cool and has potential, but we're always going to need people that are programming those algorithms, that are feeding that stuff. Like that's what we're going to need, because our customers are going to keep pushing the limits of the platforms, of the applications and the use cases, right? And everybody wants to move faster and faster and faster. And so really have to think too, like the speed that you work now has to get faster. And a lot of people then, there's this point too, like you were talking about new hire energy, and then there's like the bitter burnout. And we can all go into like bitter burnout mode, but from a career perspective, you can't stay there very long. And if you do that too long, it's going to have a negative impact on your career. And part of that, I think, processing that people need to realize is like the speed is going to get faster. And the higher up you go in your progression, like you're actually expected to do more. You're not expected to, make the A team and now, I get to do less. But be smarter about how you work. Don't just think of it as like bitter and like being burnt out. Like be smarter on it, prioritize it, be communicative on like, I'm doing this and I'm not doing that, and here's why, and get that feedback. And then in that way, you're going to be able to see like positive results and, continue on in a happy path.
Yeah. Marilyn, what about you? How are we preparing our organizations for the future of support?
So I look at it with the pandemic, it really helped elevate the support organization in a whole different way, with knowing that it was so key and important, leaning on the support team to build those strong relationships through the customer experience with the customers, and driving the focus around paying more attention to what support has to say and bring to the table. I think that has been kind of the change in the trend around that. And as it comes to the technology side of things, don't let it happen to you, right? It's all coming, whether you like it or not. You really need to get into the forefront of it, and start going out there and exploring, taking a look at your current tech stack. What are things that you need to go and start improving on, moving away from, moving towards, and just spending the effort to look through and not just think that what's working now is going to just continue to work for you, because the industry is continuing to grow and evolve, and it's just important to just stay out there, get plugged into all the different new techs that are coming, startups, or other established companies, even as they're diving into more the AI machine learning, just like support Logic has done so well in, just making sure that you have more understanding in that space, and not being told that you need to go and now pivot, but be prepared and have that roadmap for that transformation.
Absolutely. Jason, future of support.
Well, I keep seeing that we have like a 3-minute warning, and there's a couple of questions in the chat, so I can answer, or do we want to go to the Q&A?
I can go to the Q&A. That one is the first question in the chat is really, it's clear that you're all really good people managers. Check plus.
Well, I saw that one, but no, I was actually looking at the one that said
the second one.
How important is training for them? Whoever said that, thank you. From the group.
So I have the one that says, I've held various roles from sales to account management. Would someone like me that loves what support and success does be a good fit?
Yes.
100%.
Yes. I mean, that's the answer. If you have a passion for it, that would be my answer.
Cool. And Jason, I'm kind of laughing, but I'm not seeing the question that you're mentioning.
Oh, it's the other question is how important is training for your support managers so they can help the support engineers?
Oh, awesome question.
And I think that's a phenomenal question. I'll start, and I'll keep it brief because maybe Marlene and Marilyn have something. To me, I want my managers managing, my directors directing, and my VPs VPing. I don't necessarily need my managers to understand what the tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1 guys do. There's a reason for that. We could go to the training, we go to the product. I want my managers doing one-on-ones. I want them looking at data. I want them looking for improvements. I want them looking for CSATs. I want them listening to calls, those things. I don't necessarily need for a manager to have that technical background.
Great.
I would agree with that.
Yep. Marlene, how important is training for your managers?
Yeah, I think, as product support teams, being able to represent at each level of management, as Jason alluded to, what your product does, who your customers are, and what they're doing with that, and then having, the ability to have up-level conversations on that. That's the most important thing. You don't need to know how to solve the cases, but you do need to understand it in a way that you understand technology and the product, and you are somebody that people would go to evangelize for the product. And in that way too, you're going to build those cross-functional relationships with product and engineering, and then you're going to be able to get all the great synergies from that relationship.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you all. We are at the end of our time. I feel like we could continue this for about 4 more hours, but we are out of time. Thank each of you for your insights, for your management, and for your roadmap for folks building their careers in support. Thank you all. Bye, everyone.